get off.
Who's this guy?
That's actually your replacement.
Yeah,
but we got someone who tried to look like you, but I was maybe a little bit drunk when I picked him up.
Yeah, so. I was gonna say this is not your best work.
A person who's late to this show cannot insult the other host. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'll insult you.
Are you ready to make some groundbreaking analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, today's games were so fast.
I know. It was like 2-0 with the 2-0, right?
Yeah, 2-0s on both for everything.
I remember I was watching. I told Josh, I'll be there at like 4, because that's how long it usually takes.
Yeah.
I was out driving by 2:30 because the games were over. Boom.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Okay, let's start the first series. Josh, what was the first series? It was the CLG or
C9 versus
TL.
TL. I mean, like, you want to say TL looked better, but 2 of the games were against Ray. And contrary to what people think, like, Impact actually talks a lot for C9. Not necessarily, like, super shot calling, but at least saying, like, that's a good idea, don't do this, let's do that. So, like, when you take Impact out of C9, like, not only are you getting a downgrade in terms of your top lane player, but you're getting a downgrade in overall game knowledge on the team, like, by a significant margin.
I think the worst thing, the thing I can't say is that Ray actually looks good. Like, he plays well, but he doesn't play well together with the team. Like, it's obvious when Ray is there, you could see C9's weaknesses without Impact, They tend to like struggle with like a good team fight play if they don't have a way to set up. And usually that person is Impact. He's the person playing Maokai, person playing Shen, setting up the fight.
That's exactly it. It's the difference between having a Renekton on your team and a Maokai. And, like, there are so many team fights where it's just like, oh, God, he's just, like, unkillable. Versus, like, oh, man, that Renekton did some damage.
Oh, the best single play I saw from Renekton was he had this great flank. It was, like, 2 people, 10% health. He like flashed in, he E'd in, just about to do something, and then he got exhausted instantly. And then he died instantly. And the next fight happened, and he flanked as well. This is like a great flank. He gets exhausted instantly, tries to flash out, dies instantly. And I was just like, oh, this champion sucks.
Both those were like, I think at least one of them was in the top lane, and like TL gets like poked down. They're trying to retreat, and it's like if that's a Maokai, a Nautilus, like anything that goes in there with some lockdown CC,
it's game over.
Yeah. C9's on the way back, but. Not the case. Honestly, for TL, they looked better in their games. Like, they even had a lead in Game 3 as well against Impact. But their mid and late game shot calling is just not good. And the only reason it was, like, somewhat close was because Reignover was just, like, popping the hell off. Like, every game, Reignover was doing work.
That's the one thing I wanted to say. Reignover, as the season has progressed, has started to look more and more like his old self. When people would be like, okay, Reignover, definitively the best jungler in North America. Like, this guy, monster, super good player. And it was at the point where, like, the first game, sure, like, Sneaky stole Baron with his W. I don't even know how it's possible, but it happened. Even with that in mind, the reason why they were so far ahead is because Reignover literally put his team on his back and carried them to almost the finish line by himself.
Yeah, so game 1, TL grabs the lead. They throw it away off the fact of Piglet getting sniped out once by a Sneaky W, keeping him from getting to the Baron pit. So Piglet dies. Another Sneaky W steals Baron. So, like, Sneaky kind of carried that game like with comebacks against TL's comp, which is like all damage comp. It's like Rumble, Graves.
Their comp was super hard to execute, if I remember correctly. The first comp?
Well, it was the same comp all 3 games, but the third game, because Graves got banned out, they ran it with Rek'Sai. And, like, Rek'Sai is not Graves. They're 2 fundamentally different champions. Where, like, Graves was their highest damage dealing champion, physical damage out of the jungle, and then you have, like, this tank Rek'Sai, which does fucking nothing but becomes a knockup bot. So, like, they tried running the same comp, but with a Rek'Sai in there, and it's just, like, Reignover can't carry on Rek'Sai.
Well, I also thought it was that C9 couldn't necessarily win without a frontline top laner.
That too, yeah, because it's hard.
Yeah, especially because everyone else on their team, because... What ended up happening? Contracts played Ivern 2 games in a row.
Yeah, and that's actually a decent matchup for Graves as well. Like, because you get to bully Daisy around, which is one of the few thing.
Yeah, so I think that Contracts didn't look great on Ivern. And honestly, the more I saw the jungle matchup, the more I'm convinced that, like, if you want to beat C9, you got to take it through the jungle to somewhere else somehow.
Right.
And Reignover was a good example of, like, how to take advantage of C9's jungle. I want to point out, though, that series... Even though TL played well, there's still the same situation where I'm just like, their bot lane doesn't know how to play back. Like, regardless of whatever happens, their bot lane shouldn't be dying in some of these situations. So,
well, like the game 3, ᵐᵉᵐᵉ just like killed Piglet and they traded, and it was just like, what are you guys doing? Like,
I think the best example is game 1 where Reignover sets up the bot lane lead, right?
Yeah.
He's like, he gets them the double. He gets a double
Yeah,
kill.
he gets
for
the double
The
kill.
game's like over for their lane. Like, it's great, right? And then he goes top side. And then they overextend against the Ivern and they die. And it's like, well, you have no vision there. Oh, was that? No, that was the first game.
That was game 1.
Yeah,
You got like the double kill like 4 minutes.
Yeah, and so like it wasn't warded. He just ran through like the bot try, and then they just died. I'm just so confused because I don't think that should happen.
We too loud now? I'm just gonna grab the microphone and scream into it. You guys ready? Yeah. So honestly, game 2 was mostly the same thing. So this time TL didn't throw, and they didn't get quite as big of a lead in the early game either. But they forced a ton of plays. Like, one thing I liked about TL in this series was that they kept forcing plays. They kept forcing plays. Some of them were awful plays, but they kept forcing plays. And then game 2, they finally forced around the Baron, and they just get it. And then they just win.
One of the things to point out, the other thing outside of Reignover is actually Piglet had a good series. Like, even though he messed up in lane, I think the biggest thing is, what did I say that's bad about the bottom tier teams? Is that usually their AD carries struggle at being able to make initiation plays during the mid game.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a good series where Piglet was just like, boom, flash Varus ulti, flash Varus ulti, flash Varus, and they'd blow open, like, get a pick, blow open the game that way. And I think that, like, at the very least, I saw, like, a decisive form of Team Liquid that I want to see more of.
Well, sure, but it still felt like they would lose so many fights if it wasn't off the back of Reignover, like, hard carrying. Like, there were so many, like, scraps in the jungle where, like, Reignover played like a beast, and they, like, barely come out ahead. And then as soon as he's on Rek'Sai, it's like you can't do that, and they just look awful. Loureloux looked awful this series for the most part.
Oh,
like,
you want to go just one series? I think Reignover,
both series.
Reignover took like the power of Loureloux. Like Loureloux was like
he just
really
like feasts off his top laner.
Yeah, Loureloux looks amazing, right? Like top 3 top laner start of the season, and as the season progresses, like Loureloux starts slumping. And Reignover starts going up. Like, it must be that he's taking his power away, because I can't explain it, right? Loureloux's play recently has looked really bad.
Yeah.
And Reignover is the reverse. He's been looking great.
Yeah, and like the bot lane consistently like overextending, dying all the time, and then Golden Glue's Golden Glue. So like TL isn't progressing at all really, and it looks pretty bad for them. C9, on the other hand, it still looks really good. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people are worried about the first 2 games. I think that they do have holes in their gameplay, especially when Contracts isn't on the carry jungler. It looks bad. If the meta shifts going to playoffs and Contracts is like forced to go stuff like Ivern or maybe like Rek'Sai, even like way defensive stuff, not aggressive stuff, I don't know how well he's going to perform.
The one thing I'll say is if the meta changes to the point where it's like a lot of like supportive junglers, tanky junglers, maybe that frees up top lane for carries because Impact can hard carry. We've seen it before. So like if the meta changes where they Contracts has to play the meta and it's Ivern, it's Rek'Sai, it's whatever else, like you can put Impact on Jace, on Kennen, on Rumble, and he will shit on kids. So in that sense, it's still like, yeah, Contracts will look worse, but at least Impact will have an easier time carrying than on Shen.
But this series just told me who C9's most important player was. It's Impact.
Right, for sure.
In the series where, in a situation where your Contracts is playing poorly, and he has to play like carry-oriented junglers, top lane can play tanks. He's Impact one of the best tank players in the region.
Yeah, I think you can say probably the best, at least in terms of coordinating with his team as well. That's for sure. I heard an interesting point someone made. They were wondering, has Impact challenged Bjergsen for the title of best in NA?
In terms of overall consistency from week 1 to current week, I would say yes. But I still think Bjergsen, because he's a mid lane player, it's like more impressive to me because right now, like, there isn't a lot of mechanical outplays from the top lane. Top lane a lot of the time is, okay, you get very, very small leads, and then you work really well with your team to set up team fights, and you frontline well. I'm not saying there's not skill in being able to frontline well. God forbid. Frontline well is one of the hardest skills in the game. Yeah. However, for me personally, I find it to be cooler to watch a mid lane carry play.
Whoa, that sounds like some biased-ass reasoning.
It 100% is. And I in terms of...
Like, I'm a mid player, so I like watching mids play.
Dude, you can ask anyone in the chat. Are you guys going to pop off if you guys see a...
Yo, tell me if you like seeing Shen press Q and auto 3 times. Like, yeah, that's my dude.
Or are you going to watch Bjergsen pop off on Zen? You're just like, oh my god, this guy's so good.
All right, but I mean, I'm talking about like just pure like importance on the team because C9 is 2-2 with Ray, and 12-1 with Impact.
And
you admitted that Ray's not even that bad.
No,
right.
Ray,
So that's what I'm saying. Like, how important is Impact? Like, is this dude actually the MVP of the league right now?
But the ones that this guy is the most important player for C9. But if you think about Bjergsen's role in TSM, if Bjergsen doesn't exist, TSM would have maybe gotten relegated years ago. Like with any kind of inferior mid lane player.
Potentially, but we're talking this season.
Yeah, in this season, I think it's even more important because they don't have double lift. So
Sure,
he doesn't exist, where is TSM? Bottom 5. Maybe. You know, Hansa's playing really well, and Sven's still like a good player. But a lot of their like carry threat has to come from their mid lane.
Yeah, all right. That was just an interesting tangent. I think it's like actually super close.
I think it's really close, and it's probably the first time I've ever been able to be like, yeah, it's one of these two. You know, last season I was like, it's either Reignover or Bjergsen.
And even then, I thought it was hands down.
Yeah, but I just thought
I actually think Double Lift was closer last season than Reignover for MVP. Because I thought, like, you can look at TSM pre Double Lift and how they ended games, and it still sucked even when they were winning. I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, I do agree. Oh. No, I can understand. Yeah. Well, let's go on to the next series.
Yeah, I'm okay on this series. Basically, C9, when they put Ray in, they play weirder shit and they're not as good. Team Liquid looked okay with their one comp.
They looked better.
They looked better until today, and we'll get into that series. We'll get into that series when it's time to get into that series. Other series from Friday night was Immortals versus Dignitas. Holy shit, game 1 was so bad. That was the worst League of Legends I think I've ever watched in like recent memory. Actually, I've ever watched in person because I was at the studio for this game. I almost fell asleep in my chair. I was like watching and I was trying to like.
I talked about this in the pregame show about how like this was just like a bad game of League of Legends.
Straight up bad.
And like you knew like from a certain point who was gonna win because Dignitas didn't do anything. So you knew the result. There wasn't a surprise when you saw Immortals win. You weren't like, oh my god, how'd they pull that off? You were just like, can they do it already? Like, come on, please. Dignitas, please fight back. Please fight for this. Please fight for that.
Nope. Pass. I don't need that one.
We bush camped for a minute. Here, it didn't work. All right, we're back in our base. It's like, oh my god. Like, if there's any game I would not recommend you ever watch, it would be this game. And I would recommend.
No, you watch this game and you learn to never do that. You never be Dignitas ever in this game. Don't be them. That's the advice.
Okay, so we rated Dignitas really high before, and throughout the split, their progression has dropped a lot.
Right.
What was your takeaway from this series on the Dig side?
So I was at the studio. I was watching their player camps. Because if you've never been to the studio, there's the players seated, and they have cameras on them. And then on the front of where they're seated, you can actually see all their faces. So you can also sometimes hear them as well, depending on how loud the team is. I was watching Dignitas. They didn't say a fucking word the whole time that they were getting pushed around the map with a gold lead with a split push comp. No coordination at all on this team, basically. No one's saying anything. So
really?
Yeah, no one was talking. No one was saying anything. Like there would be like a sentence every like minute. It was nothing, almost nothing. So I'm like amazed. Like
this is like the craziest thing I've heard because that's like the situation where you need to be saying the most. Like, okay, how do we come back from this situation? What about this way? What about this way?
I need vision here. Like they're doing this. Like nothing. And it was so brutal to watch because they had the lead that game. Game 1. They have a split push comp, like a split pushy poke comp versus a hard engage comp on the side of Immortals. They need to split them up, keep their 4-man core safe, get vision side, have Jace push in, like all this stuff. And Jace was just like grouped, and they would just sit there and eat Varus arrows with their no tank comp.
Was that also the game where Jace ended up going the Hex String, the Maul into the QSS into like the Executioner's Calling?
I don't remember his exact build that game because I was falling asleep.
I just remember at some point I looked at that build and I'm like, oh, so he's never going to be a split push threat till like really late in the game. Probably after the point where it's necessary for him.
He couldn't hurt Maokai after a little bit.
Yeah, and so I thought, so the standard build against tanks is Cleaver into Last Whisper. And he went like Cleaver into like MR, into like another MR item, into Executioners.
Yeah, I think that was that game.
And at that point, I knew they were in a terrible spot because he invested so much gold to not being able to do the only way they could win.
Right, was just split. And like, so credit to Immortals a little bit because they played clean, but their team comp had so much hard engage and they never pushed the go button. It was like Dignitas was way too pussy to split them up and push hard and contest stuff, and Immortals was way too pussy to just dive them and kill them. because they didn't need to. I admit they didn't need to, and it's fine to play this way, but it's not impressive when you have a Maokai, a Varus, a Ryze to port people in. They had so many tools to like force a fight if they ever needed to, whenever they poked people low, and they just never dove.
And if people want to know like what keeps Immortals from being like a top-rated team, watch how TSM closes out games when they get leads. A good example is their first game, which we'll get to eventually, but that was a game where it was like, oh, it was even, they got the lead, the game's over in 25 minutes.
And the other team had Baron.
Yeah.
It was like, what?
The other team is like they're in the game, but you're wondering if they're even playing against them. Like TSM just took control, and that was it. But Immortals can't do that right now. And to be fair, last week
they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, they couldn't do anything. So this is like a dramatic increase from last week. I think a good thing that happened last week is they kind of figured out what they want to do with their roles. So Pole Belter, okay, he's gotten a little bit. He's gotten better for sure. I think he's dying less solo, and he's just dying in like maybe like weird skirmishes, but less solo, which is a great improvement. And their bot lane, they're just gonna play random stuff. Like, that's just how I see it. Aside from the Varus game, the first game where he did 65% of the overall damage, Cody Sun's best game in his whole split. Usually they play stuff like MF, and their support is like what? Thresh.
You gotta look at it in context. Like that was not an impressive Varus game. Like people kept talking about like 65% record-breaking game. Cody Sun stepping up, and it's like, dude, you can press, anyone who could press Q could have done that game. Like if you have a brain and a mouse, you can do. You could probably do that on a touchpad. That game, that was so easy.
You know what my problem with that game was? Because I was like tweeting about the game live. He actually didn't hit almost any arrows. Like one of the biggest reasons why Immortals couldn't push the mid game lead is because of his ultis, and he missed all of his poke. And then after about the 25 to 30 minute mark, Cody Sun actually started hitting his arrows. And it was at the point where he did so much damage that he would half health the carries. But he could have done that from like the 15-minute mark.
Yeah.
But he just didn't hit anything. All the times the camera panned to the mid lane, he missed everything.
Yeah. That game was just like, Dignitas handed it over. Game 2 was much more impressive. It seemed like Dignitas was pretty tilted, but Immortals was fast, at least in that one. We did see the Warwick pick. I don't know if you have anything to talk about that in Game 1.
I think Warwick is just good. Like, I think the champion itself is strong, it's tanky, and it does its job well. Which is essentially that he is a frontline initiator that can reduce a lot of damage and has CC built into his kit. He's got good roam tools, and his skirmish isn't that bad. I like to see more of Warwick, and I'm sure we will as more champions get nerfed.
I think it's a good change up. I think like the engage is good. Dardoch missed a lot of Warwick ults at the very beginning, but that actually is harder to use than people think. It's like a Shenton. Like a lot of people miss Shentons. Like missing a Warwick ult is like
so people don't realize the problem with Warwick right now is most skill shots extend past the range.
Right.
But Warwick ulti does not. Also, most skill shots latch on at the end. If you ever played Thresh or if you ever played Blitzcrank, when you throw the skill shot, the end is a ball shape. It latches on to nearby targets. Warwick skill shot does not do that. So missing Warwick ulti is like, it's gonna happen because it's almost impossible to secure it. Like there's a reason why you flash ulti to make sure that there's less of a chance for them to dodge it, because you don't have a margin of error with that skill shot at all.
Right. So I think Warwick will be a pick we see a little bit more, assuming that Kha'Zix's Rengar nerfs actually hurt them at all. I think you'll see a lot more Ivern as well, stuff like that. But cool to see it for the first time in NA. I don't know. It didn't do much that game because he made like a couple good force plays with it to kind of keep them even, but then they fell behind anyways, and then it just didn't matter.
Yeah, it felt like Dignitas wasn't into the series after the first game.
Even the first game, it was like, all right.
Oh, well, they had the lead. So they were in the series, and they lost, and then they just lost.
Yeah. All right. I don't have anything more to say.
I'm good. Let's move on to today's games.
All right, so moving on to today's game, Saturday. First one, CLG versus Fox. You're a big CLG homer. How do you feel after watching that series?
Oh, they got smashed. What?
Yeah, I know, but you generally love CLG as a team, and now you're watching your boys.
Okay, so I don't know what to say. Like I think it's just really weird. Like I watched this series like this, and I'm just like, what happened? Like we're back to the drawing board. The first game, I looked at the draft, and I was like, CLG, I'm pretty sure got what they kind of wanted, but Echo Fox got what they wanted too.
Sure.
And I think that in the end, I preferred Echo Fox's style mainly because Xmithie's not a good Rengar player. Like, Xmithie's not a standout Rengar player. If he doesn't have the Shen plus Rengar Xell, he's not going to perform that well on Rengar. Whereas, like, other Rengar players are just going to pop off. Like, he needs the Xell to do well, whereas another jungler wouldn't. And so they got Rengar and they traded away LeBlanc for it to a player who can't play Rengar super well.
So do you think, so what they did in the second phase of their rotation in that draft, they took Shen and then they took Jace away because they wanted to protect the Shen pick. Do you think if they didn't have Rengar, they would have drafted that second phase differently? Because then they wouldn't have taken Shen, right? They would just take a different...
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have taken Shen. Shen protects everything and is good into LeBlanc, you know? I think that generally the comp itself is fine, you know? But when you think about how Rengar can gank that game, what lane can he gank? What is a good lane for him to gank? Nothing, right?
Like top, maybe?
Yeah, top is the best lane for gank. And if you're ganking a tank versus tank matchup, it sucks. Like, because if you want to tower dive a tank, you're just like, oh, God. Like, maybe I just die.
Yeah.
So he had no good lanes to gank, and I think that's why I'm saying Echo Fox was in a position where they wanted to be in. And in that position, they're like, okay, we give you Rengar. We think that our jungler plus Froggen is going to be able to beat out any pressure Shen plus Rengar is going to put out. And it was. I thought Froggen played a great series, and he was MVP of the series for me.
I thought he was good, but I felt like CLG should have won this game because like there were a lot of scraps early that like were going in CLG's favor mostly. Like Acadian and Froggen played really well once again, like the two that always do well. But then CLG was still in the lead. But then every time they grouped up mid, like CLG's formation would break and Stixxay would somehow die, like right at the beginning of every fight. And it didn't feel like Stixxay's fault to me. It just felt like CLG, once like they try and make a play, they just like all kind of like lose their minds a little bit. And that's kind of what has been happening all season for them, where like as soon as they start playing aggressive, it either goes to hell or it looks like the most coordinated thing you've ever seen.
I think it's just uncomfortability with Rengar, because the thing about Rengar is Rengar's not a frontline champ. It's not like a Maokai, which can walk up in a team. And when Xmithie tried the frontline, he literally gets chained and two-hit, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't have their Shen frontlining, then they don't have anything. And honestly, LeBlanc was looking for a lot of flank plays that game as well. So one of the things I didn't like about that game actually was Froggen's build was really, really bad, in my opinion. He went the Liandry, Luden, Zhonya's, and at that point, he is 4 items in with Liandry's, Luden, Zhonya's, and Sork Shoes. And I was just like, he has no penetration. That was when CLG started taking the fights, right?
Yeah.
No one could kill Shen, and it was essentially like Shen v World. And the other team also had Lulu plus Shen ulti. So the only person who didn't have MR on the team, because mid lane went a full maw, was Stixxay. So I'm like, okay, the only way Echo Fox wins this game is if Froggen somehow finds a way to kill Stixxay through his team while they're pushing up when they have the advantage. And you know what happens? Froggen does it. WZ hits the E through 2 teammates of CLG. It hits Stixxay and Stixxay dies. And I'm just like, this is how they win. I was actually so mad that happened.
Yeah, I mean, that was so ridiculous the way that went on. But like even before that point, or even like the whole game, like Stixxay kept dying at the start of fights. It was like a consistent thing, and then CLG would like play mostly better, and then.
Well, I think CLG drafted the Lulu to try to make sure that didn't happen. Well, but they don't have much lockdown. Like outside the Lulu and the Shentot, which could be in the game not only by the Zhonya's but also by the Kench Swallow.
Yeah,
it's a very difficult game for Stixxay to navigate. You know, because if he ever gets hit, there's a lot of situations where LeBlanc would flank and do like double distortion flash E from melee range, and then it'd be like, well, even if the LeBlanc gets CC'd or dies, he won't die fast enough before the chain goes off, and then he's stuck in like a really bad spot for the team. So I just thought that
I didn't put it on Stixxay either. Like what happened? I just thought, I don't know, like CLG never like, I don't know, it didn't feel like they could control the LeBlanc at all, and that made it impossible for Stixxay.
No, they couldn't. I think part of it was because I don't like Jason to LeBlanc. Like it's good as like a pokey thing, but it can't lock down LeBlanc in team fights. And so maybe I just say that because I look at how the result of the game and Froggen got a really early lead. But that's not necessarily going to happen in all situations.
Well, I know, but like something like a Rise, something like even an Ori, or like just anything with a little bit more utility out of the mid lane would probably help more than just a pure damage pokey Jace thing. So I'm with you there. Second game was way more of a stomp. Like this was basically CLG. Like I don't know if they were tilted or what, but that game looked awful.
It was just. They lost the mid-jungle control, and then okay, so when you play against Corki, the number one thing you think to yourself is, when is Corki spike? And you're going to think, people think item spikes. So like 24 sword shoots, whatever. I think minute spikes. You know why? The first package comes out in 9 minutes. You want to know COG's first gank bot lane came at 9:30. So Froggen took the package around 9 minutes, and then when COG ganked bot lane, it got turned because Froggen pushed it mid lane and it ran bot lane. Game was over, in my opinion, because Hui, like the mid lane skirmish failed so bad. The jungle mid, Froggen and Katie took over the game completely.
It was kind of like the first one was fine, where like Acadian had that nice flash over the wall onto Hui when he had no flash to get the kill, and then he camps the jungle and he tries to pick off Smithy and he dies. And I honestly thought CLG was okay in that game until Hui died mid at like I think it was like 14 minutes, and then immediately after CLG tries to force a play bottom, and then it just gets collapsed on from the mid lane where they have no pressure, and then like they just lose like 3 more kills in the bot lane. I think that's when they lost their first turret.
The problem is when I see how CLG has to win, it's like either Graves goes in through top lane, which Smithy played the 2v1 terribly, got flung and died.
Yeah,
he had the ward.
Because he face checked.
Yeah, he even warded it and still was in melee range to get flung, and like he shouldn't have died in that position. But like the way they usually go through is they would go through top lane, kill Singed, and then after they kill Singed, top lane would be strong enough to where they could force through like mid to bot, you know? But the problem was mid had no pressure.
Yeah, I was going to say mid was losing.
The mid had no. It wasn't just losing. If you saw Hui was like playing at tower, and Froggen had full control of the wave. That's why the mid lane roams went so fast. When they forced bot side, usually if you force bot with Shen, you always win. But Froggen was always there, and they forced on 2 package cooldowns, not just one. The first one and the second one, which I was like, oh, this is the game ender.
Well, but like even those force plays that they were going for, when they would go for them, they would be not just down pressure, but like he's fucking dead. Like you can't even show up late in that situation. Like if that play that you force on the bot side doesn't instantly go right for you, it's still going to be at best a trade because you're going to get collapsed on. So like you're going to overextend into their turret. Maybe you get like 2 kills and escape at low health, but then here comes the jungler in mid because you don't have a mid laner. So like I felt like CLG has this problem, I think, where they have a really hard time keeping track of all the variables. I've seen them force plays down TP advantage. I've seen them force plays without their mid laner. I've seen them force plays when they have no ultimates. It feels like they just do a really bad job tracking all the variables in the game to say, we can't go right now. They have this advantage.
I think that's a really good description of how they think, actually, because I can track a lot of games where in like a specific setting, the 4v4 is going to go great, and the initiation they got, or the poke they got, or whatever they got was really, really good to start the fight. But they don't track the TP cooldown. So I think of that one game against Dignitas, where Someday was on Fiora, and they literally forced the bot lane fight, and then out, and no situation would they ever win that fight.
Because Someday could have TP'd so much earlier.
Someday could have TP'd in like literally 30 seconds before he did, and just like crushed the fight. He TP'd in late, still crushed the fight.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good example of COG's weaknesses, is that you're right. They don't keep track of these variables, and it's costing them a lot of games.
Right. So, I mean, that's basically what I thought happened in Game 2 the most, was like, they played things bad, too. Like, straight up bad. Like, the top gank by Smithy was bad, but...
the bot lane, like, 2 people, like, they died to Keith's ulti through, like, 2 champions. I was just like, what?
Stixxay just, oh my god, that was so bad.
And people were just like, Keith played this great. And I'm like, he played well.
He shot it at the guy, and then everyone moved out of the way. Like,
but it's like, it really felt like CLG dropped the ball this series. And so, like, for me, CLG is back to the drawing board on this. I don't know. It's obviously have a lot of mistakes. I was hoping they would show gradual improvement. They still have another series tomorrow. So we'll see how they do that.
Echo Fox, I think they looked really good. They're sitting at 3 and 4. And, I mean, it's hard to know how far. I think there's a clear middle group right now as well, or mostly clear middle group, where somehow Immortals has found themselves in it, with, like, maybe P1, Echo Fox, and then...
I think this series, for me, actually just goes to show, like, the improvement in Echo Fox. Because if you remember the first time they played Singed, they stopped playing Singed for like weeks. Yeah. Even in situations where Singed was really good. You pick Singed into Maokai, into Shen, into any tank matchup, and Singed would do great. But it took them from like week 1 to like, or like week 2 to like all the way to week 4 to bust it out. I think that it helped out a lot, because if you see, the biggest problem the first week was that his TPs were bad. And if you're playing Singed, you have to get good TPs to be able to force fights and force pressure, as well as like be able to pressure through top side. And so this game, really good communication. He proxied the wave into forcing pressure to get them first blood, essentially. And then really good TP flank, got them another couple kills. I thought this is a good showing of evolution for the team, or like progress, I would say.
Right. I think Echo Fox has improved. CLG is just inconsistent.
Yep.
All right, moving on to our 4th matchup for today. Well, second one of today, fourth of the show, whatever. It's P1 versus FlyQuest. I mean, P1, they kind of got shit on.
Second game.
First game was close a little bit. Obviously, FlyQuest won 2-0, so pretty good games out of them. But game one was the more interesting one, I think, obviously.
Definitely was more interesting. Like, immediately, there was a lot of weird variables that came out during the game. A good example is, okay, Moon is the only Kha'Zix who's ever evolved W at 6. And I'm assuming it was to get early picks with his mid laner.
Right. So the way this game worked was like 7 minutes in, early awesome play for FlyQuest, and they had the weird draft again where they leave up LeBlanc. They take LeBlanc, Kha'Zix. The other team only got Varus out of it. It looks awful for P1 in terms of like the trade. They still get Ryze, Zyra, so they have like a really strong mid bot, and then FlyQuest has a really strong top mid with Maokai as well. So like very different in terms of where their team's strengths are, and then like it looks like FlyQuest is gonna roll over the game because they get the picks in the jungle, and then Fly fucking solo kills Ryu, so it looks great for FlyQuest.
And then all of a sudden, the bot lane comes in out of nowhere through bot river when FlyQuest is making the mid jungle play mid, and they get turned and they get 2-0'd. And that was a point where I was like, oh, P1's gonna pop off. And as Arrow score, like as you watch Arrow throughout this game, just like you just see like his KDA. Oh, he's 6-0. Oh, he's 8-0. He's 12-2. You're just like, oh my god, Arrow is so good.
Arrow's nasty.
You watch this guy hit skill shots. Like right now, a lot of AD carry effectiveness in the mid game, and just in general, is how well can you hit skill shots. You watch Arrow. This guy does not miss much, and he is like straight carrying P1 in a lot of these situations. But even with all of that in mind, he couldn't do it this game. Like I thought they had a really poor comp to deal with Kha'Zix LeBlanc.
That's what I was about to say. So like P1, after they turn that one mid play, they go bottom, they dive off the fed Varus, and then they just like move around the map, and Varus just kills people over and over. But then whenever they had to siege at the late game, High, who's always been nasty at this, is like sitting in the fog of war off on the flank, and it makes it so uncomfortable for your AD carry to walk up to hit a turret or a contest, because your tanks want to go in forward, which leaves them exposed in the back. And then if your tanks never walk forward, you can never hit anything.
And the worst case scenario is usually the AD carry is okay, because when you're running an AD carry against LeBlanc, you pick something like Lulu, for instance, like what CLG tried to do, right?
Right.
But and that's like almost good enough to deal with LeBlanc, because she can solo pressure Lulu with CC into death. But they had Zyra, which LeBlanc has always done well in the Zyra. If you see like if you remember VODs all the way back into LCK, like season 3 or season 3 and 4 even, I think when LeBlanc was really popular, that was like the season where LeBlanc one hit the Zyra support, and that was like the running joke. Like the Zyra supports,
they had like Sightstone, that's it.
And they just died instantly. And Zyra has never been good at being able to react to LeBlanc's instantaneous like damage, and so they had no way to deal with the poke from Kha'Zix and the poke from LeBlanc.
Right, so the poke from Kha'Zix was really big too, because Moon as well was sitting off in flanks and just poking them low, and then like they had the Ryze to like W if you ever saw the LeBlanc go in, but it was still too hard to do because they'd be low at that point. And then Balls actually had a really good game where he did a lot of like good engagement.
He started 0-5. And if you watch how he engaged, you're just like, this guy for sure.
You think it's a fed-ass Maokai watching him go. Yeah.
You're like, for sure, this guy can't live. He just straight up walks into the enemy team, W's into 4 people, and just lives. And in fact, he ends the team fight, like, his GA's pop, but like the team fight went so well, it doesn't matter.
Right, and so, A, that kind of shows Maokai is stupid as hell.
Yes.
B, I think it showed that FlyQuest knows how to play this comp really well as well. Just like they know how to play with assassins. They're off in the flanks. They're making things annoying. The tank's not afraid to go in. Like, they played this game after kind of throwing away their lead, and like they forced a couple too many plays, but then they just kept winning team fight after team fight after team fight, and it looked like they were just a more competent team with what their comp did.
And I really like watching Moon throughout this entire series. I think Moon is definitely the player that has been most surprising.
You're right.
Throughout the entire LCS.
I think between him and Acadian, it's close, but Moon has more of like a troubled history or whatever, where it's like...
He's like that troubled childhood.
He's got that dark backstory.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that kid might be a little weird.
Yeah, he like lost so much on other teams. He didn't play well, but he came with the FlyQuest, and now he's playing like one of the best junglers in the league.
Right, and game 2, I think, showcases that really well, where High got the fat camp mid, like... on Elise, and Nori went there like 2 or 3 times in the first 10 minutes, just like trading flashes, trying to be really aggressive, because I think their mentality was like, High's the most important member of the team, let's hold him down, let's camp him, and they did, but I mean, Moon just went off and did it on his own this time. Like, no, doesn't need high. He like counter ganked bottom, like all this stuff.
And actually, that's something that was really weird for me because I'm like, okay, if High and Moon can't come together and get a lead every game, is there a problem?
Right.
And so the first game showed they can come in from behind, you know, and they're still effective even if they're behind. The second game showed me that they can win through other lanes. And usually by other lanes I mean not balls. Because usually balls is like their no offense, balls.
Yeah, they never play through top.
Yeah, balls is like the island. And so, like, the running joke before in earlier seasons was like, a top lane doesn't exist. It's a 4v4 until the TP comes in. But for FlyQuest, I feel like that's just the truth, you know? Until they snowball mid lane, they don't interact with top lane for the most part, you know? And this game was a good example of them snowballing. Moon snowballed his lead mainly through bot lane. So if you look at the Altec score, you'd be like, oh, wow, Altec carried this game. It's like, no. Moon was there at really good times, snowballed the game really well through bot side, and then bot plus Moon carried the entire game.
Right, and I think Moon deserves more credit than bottom. No offense to like Alltech and stuff. I mean, it's great that he has his picks, like the Jhin, the Ezreal. Like, yeah, that's great. But it's rarely like just the bot lane doing it. They're usually getting helped out somehow. So this time it's like Moon. Lemon looks like he's caught out. Moon comes in, like just carries that, and then once a High got like a little bit of help, he started like murking people as well. So. He's just like he's one of the most aggressive players in the LCS. I think like Acadian's up there, and I think High might be like number 2 in terms of just like he'll fight you. He doesn't care. Game 1, he's on the block. They're losing. He just dies, runs out from Fountain, runs down bot lane, distortions in, gets rooted up, and dies again. He's like, all right, I'll try that in a minute. He just balls out aggro.
Well, I mean, that's what makes FlyQuest so fun.
Right,
watch,
of course,
know?
yeah.
If you guys want to watch entertaining series, I would always recommend to watch FlyQuest because win or lose, they're going to do stuff. And
the drafts are cool.
Yeah, and the drafts are really cool. And so that's why FlyQuest is one of my favorite teams in the LCS right now. And I feel like they're paying me to say this. But like, if you guys ever want to watch a series.
FlyQuest shirt on?
No. I mean, I have a Riot Games hoodie on.
Oh, okay.
But if you ever want to watch interesting series, I would always say watch FlyQuest.
On the flip side for P1, I don't think this looked that bad for them. To me, there was like a top 4 teams where it was like TSM, FlyQuest, C9, and P1. I think it just shows that they're the bottom of those. I still think they looked decent. Like Arrow's still a beast. Honori has tilt problems. No surprise. Like I used to like refuse to scrim Honori just because of that.
Oh, no, I heard about that too. And I think he's gotten a lot better over the years as well. I mean, that second game he was 0-7, you know?
Yeah, he was like...
It was like, at some point, you're like, oh, he's hard killing himself.
So, not to rag on Honori too much here, because I actually like him like when I see him around, but he would hard feed in scrims if anything started going wrong. Like 4 minutes into the game, his bot lane gets double killed. He would literally run up to your mid lane and just kill himself. And like it got so annoying, I started refusing to scrim him unless it was like our last resort. I would refuse to scrim any team he was on in the challenger scene. Like it was so annoying to play it, like because it was just like you don't need to do that, dude. Like you're just This game looked like a little bit of flashbacks to that. Like he's not quite over that hump yet. But obviously it's not the same in LCS. I just mean like his mentality switches.
I also want to say that playing against FlyQuest, I was about to say HighQuest, which might actually be true.
May as well be, yeah.
Yeah, playing against FlyQuest from behind is probably one of the most challenging things to do. Because similar to C9 and similar to TSM, they're a top 3 team.
Right.
And so they're a team that will more than likely not out shot call because they have the better shot callers.
Well, and they don't let up. Like that's the thing is like when a team falls behind, often there's like this regrouping phase where they're like, all right, well we're down pressure now, so we need to wait for them to make a mistake. FlyQuest is like we will jam our face into yours until like we die or we came back. Yeah, like that's it.
And so I think that they're like people didn't look bad the second game, but I'm at least happy they held up like a pretty good fight the first game.
Right.
And Arrow keeps cementing himself as like
the best,
the player to beat. If you're an AD carry in North America, Arrow is who you should look up to right now.
For sure. All right, that's it for that series. Moving on to our second to last of the day, TSM versus Envy. I mean, there's... I don't feel like there's too much to say.
Wait. Okay, I'm going off on this.
Okay, you take this one, because I personally didn't care too much about it.
What the mid lane Rise build, what on earth was that?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I was like, okay, maybe I could see a Frozen Heart. Maybe, you know... I can make it's like if their jungler was 80, their top lane was 80, their mid lane was 80, and they had an 80 bot lane. Their AP carry was like a support like brand. I'd be like, okay, I can maybe see the Frozen Heart. Ever since the rework, he's scaled really bad with Frozen Heart because his rework is the more mana he has, the more AP he gets as a percentage. So if you don't have AP because you built Frozen Heart
first.
Yeah, then you're not getting anything out of that passive. And so Ro is one of the best items on them in the game. And I was like, okay, maybe the Frozen Heart makes sense. I saw the Spirit Visage, I was like, oh my god, this build is terrible. I understand the reasoning, right? You don't want to ever have a build where you don't have a front line. Or a game where you don't have a front line, because it's hard to play. So their front line was Colossus Rise. But you know what? That's terrible. So a lot of the trades he ended up losing mid lane. Do you know why Rise runs Storm Raiders in a lot of situations? So he can catch them if he gets poked. If he gets damage off, he can chase them down the lane. And he can ignore slows. So the way that matchup normally plays out is Jace Qs in with the hammer and then knocks him back and runs away. And that's exactly what Bjergsen did, right? Cool. You know how the matchup actually plays out is Rise ignores the Jace Q slow because he procs Storm Raiders as he's fighting him, and then runs straight into him right after he gets knocked back, faster move speed, and can harass him on his way out. But Bjergsen never had to worry about that. He was actually playing like a neutered version of Rise because he took this Colossus mastery, and I was just like, Bjergsen must be having the time of his life. Gets free harass off and can't get punished.
On to other things that happened in Game 1 besides Ninja's shitty build. Sven looked really good on Ivern. Once again, so like he had the monster counter gank early in the game to help Jace get the lead.
Oh god, we're gonna call that a monster. I will say.
Hold on, the first part of it.
The first kill was actually good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The first kill was good.
Okay, so I played against Sven's Ivern and in rank before, and I think Sven is one of the best players at camping mid lane, and he's one of the best players at camping mid lane with Ivern as well. If you watch I think his Ivern is just clean. He's one of the best in North America, but especially camping mid, he's perfect for team solo mid because he will enable Bjergsen to go off. Because he just knows how to camp mid lane with Ivern. It's so annoying to play against Ivern as a mid laner, especially if you have any situation where you want to trade, and he's very, very good at capitalizing around that.
Right, and I mean, so once he got that lead, he kind of like, I think he went bot lane as well and like snowballed a little bit there. This game was mostly just a stomp for TSM. After that, like Bjergsen, Sven, and Hansser actually all played really well, like the whole top half of the map. Generally how it is. Game 2 was more, I think, Wild Turtle played really well as well, so... I mean, the only thing I have to say after Game 1 and the fact that like it just snowballed and that was an awful build. Game 2, Envy reminded me of Dignitas a little bit, where they had a lead and they had like a comp that could push that lead a little bit, and then they just didn't. And like despite being down or up a lot of gold, they were down map pressure, and then even though they got a Baron, they still lost 2 inhibitors with a Baron buff. It's like, how do you do that? Up gold.
I just think that they didn't know what they were doing. So even if you watch like the Kennen build, it's like almost when Seraph plays Kennen, the on-hit Kennen, he's like, he knows how to play it up to 3 items. And then after that, he's like, wait, what do I do at this point? Because he like, if you saw his build, it's like, okay, well, he didn't build Bork early enough to pressure the tank. And he went like Last Whisper into Bork. And it's like half his damage is magic damage, so he doesn't really need the Last Whisper. Like, I think the Bork would be more effective. And it's just like, it felt like if he was Jace, he would be at the inhib tower. At like 25 minutes.
Jace is pretty good.
Yeah, but because he's playing Kennen, and like Kennen has his own unique traits where he's good as well. And I thought overall he played the early part of the lane really well. Like he pressured really well. The skirmishes came in, and he was able to turn them. They did good work as a team together with the TPs, all that stuff. And Seraph generally is a mage player. Like he tells people he's one of the best mage players, top lane mage players in the game. But
right.
It just felt like he didn't know how to split push effectively.
I don't like.
They don't know.
I don't like how the Kennen didn't look good. Game 1 looked okay. Game 2, but not like impactful enough. The other time he tried it, they picked it blind, and then like the other team picked Jace, stomped it. So like, I just don't like the Kennen pick at all out of them. It just doesn't look like it does enough.
I just like their game 2 because it seemed like they have like a better plan. You know, I thought that the Jace mid was good. Their TP coordination was good. They pressured top lane. Seraph was able to get going. They got
half that was TSM playing like shit though. Like TSM mechanically misplayed so many situations that game. There was like that top extended sequence where like Turtle and Biofrost like opened up on, I think it was Seraph, and then
then Turtle dies.
Yeah, then Turtle dies, and like he's ulting like point blank, and Jace just like shoots him in the face, and then like Sven and Hansser show up, and then like they don't do anything.
That was a really confusing one because it was probably one of the first times I've ever seen a team switch to top lane and fail to get the first tower.
Right, yeah.
Because I was like, oh wow, this is a okay time to switch, and then the camera pans to bot lane, and you're just like, wait, they're at the tower already. It's 2.5 waves at the tower, and they just get it for free. And so even if they had been able, which they killed Scarra for the top lane play, but they lost first tower, so it wasn't even worth it. So it just felt like, generally, I agree with you. TSM was definitely off the game too.
Yeah, Haunter missed a million taunts, whatever. Like that's it. Yeah, Turtle didn't die. He flashed. Whatever. The Jace shot him point blank because he was ulting 2 feet away from him. It was like, it was still just like, you're tunneling a little bit on Seraph there, friend.
Yeah. It was back when they re-rotated back top. I think Envy's just not that good of a team. And so
they actually have statistically like a decent early game, but they have like the worst mid to late game by far. They just like can't win. And the only team that they've beaten is TL when TL did nothing. When TL went Dignitas. They just didn't want to play. They didn't want to play the game that series. Yeah.
Just, you know what? I'm okay to quit the series. Overall, this series for me was just, this is like top 3 team, maybe top 2 team against the worst team in the league right now.
Right. And they didn't even stomp them in a cool way.
Yeah. The first game was like a way where it was like, oh, TSM just great play from TSM. Finished the game clean.
You know what the best part about this series was? Is it gave me an idea for a skin for Ivern. You want to hear it?
What?
I want to make like Satanic Ivern. Because he's supposed to be like this like really jolly guy. I want to flip it around where like instead of whispering to the animals and freeing them, he like sacrifices them to like demons. And like this fist comes up and like pulls them into the earth. And then like it's just super gory. Daisy's like a fucking demon. And then like his root is like intestines. He just like throws out organs.
I guess you had a lot of time to think about this when TSM was smashing it.
Yeah, I was super bored watching this series. That's what I thought about. I saw it. I was like, man, this would be such a cool skin. Satanic Ivern, please, someone mock it up, send it to Riot, anything.
That actually sounds pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, wouldn't it be sick?
But you really like this motion, and so that scares me a little bit.
No, I mean, you can...
That's what you use for Ivern, man. I'm just saying.
I'm saying when you come back and collect the souls of the animals, you don't just like whisper and set them free. You literally sacrifice them.
Yeah, with this motion, so it kind of scares me. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about your favorite team, Team Liquid.
Yeah, my boys, Team Liquid vs Immortals. Great series, awesome. Looking like they're bouncing back after their close defeat against C9, and then they just get butt pounded. Yeah, they look...
Oh, let me look at my notes while you're talking.
All right, so basically Team Liquid had this comp that they ran against C9 and looked pretty comfortable on it, and it looked okay. And then like they didn't go back to it at all this series, and they looked awful. In game 1, they like... It was a little closer, but like Lorlo just played so bad. I just didn't... I hated it. Did you watch this series at all?
Yeah, I watched every game.
Okay.
This series is like, it was a tough series for me to watch because it's like the things that I liked about them against C9, where it's like, okay, decisive mid game, Piglet like flash ulting in to start team fights is like,
it's all gone from yesterday.
Yeah, it's
nothing
not
like
really what I got, you know. Lorlo played worse. Even worse than he played before, and Reignover played okay.
He played okay, but like. They got like LeBlanc game 1. They have like this like what should be really strong comp with like LeBlanc Kha'Zix, but I don't think TL plays like assassins or anything like that well. So then like when they get that jungle skirmish really
that was so good.
They can't focus down Dardoch gets away, and then like Pobelter gets away at 1 health.
4 for 1?
They got 4 for 1 because everyone got away at 1 health. Like Pobelter's at like 100 health, and instead of flashing after him and like getting a root E off to kill him by Lorlo, he throws his Q at him. It hits the wall where he just goes over, and then like he just changes targets. And it's like, no, you could have just not thrown the Q, flash killed him, then you're on the flank for like a perfect cutoff. He just played it so bad.
Yeah, that was... I just thought from that situation, like, it was obvious that, like, they're really inconsistent about coming back. Like, or just their mid-game shot calling in general. So as soon as they got the deficit to 4 for 1, I thought the game was over. I literally looked at the game and I was like, this game is done. Actually, no, I do remember. I didn't watch this full game because as soon as this game was 1-9,
yeah,
I drove over here.
Yeah, that was
because I was just like, there's no way Team Liquid comes back from this. So maybe they did an insane play while I was driving. You could fill me in on that. But when I came here, it was 1-16, and I was like, oh,
no, game 1 was completely over from the very beginning. Game 2 was closer, still not great.
I mean, I thought this was Team Liquid's game to win.
Yeah, for sure. So it starts out really good for Immortals, where they camp the Shen, they get like a dive off on him, and he's level 5 under his turret, no TP, gets a huge wave denied. That should shit on Lorlo. He should be like out of the game, which for the most part he was. But then like they slowly started coming back off the back of like some plays around bot and mid a little bit, and it was okay. I thought he looked all right on Ivern Reignover. Like, I thought he looked decent. Like, obviously, you can't, like, hard carry on Ivern, and it's just, like, you're putting your faith on...
So, one of the funniest things is that... Have you seen the pictures of how Piglet plays Baron fights? Do you see
He's
Piglet?
Over the wall every single time.
I don't understand it. So
I don't know how he's over the wall.
For people who don't know, Piglet actually is playing the mid game, I would say, better than he used to throughout the split. So now he's being able to find picks. These follow-ups are pretty good on Jhin and Varus. And I think his Ashe play it's okay, like mid game. And then what happens is TL will go for a Baron. Every team eventually goes for Baron. If you watch Piglet, he's literally like, his team is doing Baron inside the pit. Piglet is behind the pit, over the wall, trying to like solo Varus keep people. It's like
he prioritized getting the Scryer's Bloom thing over like being with his team.
Yeah, usually the AD carry has to do the most damage to Baron because they're the highest consistent DPS source. That's like the opposite of how Piglet thinks. And to be honest, the way he plays out that situation makes me feel like he just doesn't trust his team. Like it looks like there's just no faith. Like, he's just like, my team is obviously going to mess this up. Every man for himself. I'm going to stay over here. When you guys fight, I'm the flank. And it's like, you're playing AD carry, man. You can't.
You're playing utility AD carry.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do that, like, Kalista, Vayne, like, even Lucian. Like, well, yeah, go for it. But you're like CC and, like, poke. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like, honestly, take a good look at how he plays out the Barons. Because it's like, I didn't notice it until someone brought it to my attention. I was like, are you kidding me? I would prefer if they just team fought poorly and lost. I don't even know if they can team fight because they just start in such a bad position. The other team is gifted the free win.
Right, and like their comp is like this pokey disengage comp with like Ivern, Shen, Karma.
And they should all be together and kite in one direction.
You're a ball and you force that Baron and you get the Maokai TP because all you've done is kill Thresh. So it's not like you're on that much of a power play right now. So you bait the Baron and then you kite up to the top side and hopefully you poke people low that you can maybe like re-engage or something. But they just fucking... Piglet's not there, and then they just kite up, and then Maokai roots them, and then Cody Sun presses R, and it's over. It was so bad. And that's like how all the team fights went, where it was like, oh, Team Liquid's like kind of doing something, and then Maokai presses W, and Cody presses R, and someone's dead.
I think that Cody Sun and Ole, I talked about this a little bit before, they've kind of
found their groove.
Yeah, they found their role into the team. They're both like players that are going to like Ole's going to get the fight started or like help out the fight. He doesn't have to like do too much outside of his comfort zone. I think
you could say that the bot lane right now, maybe this is a little too much, but you could argue that they're the second best thing going for Immortals right now, behind Dardoch, because they actually channel more plays through their bot lane than they do their top sometimes. I think it's close. I'm not saying like 100%, but like
it's like if you look at Dardoch is like the king of the throne.
Yeah, Dardoch is like the only reason Immortals is alive.
And it's like he doesn't have like any. If this was like royalty, he doesn't have anyone in
no
his bloodline.
heirs, no heirs to the throne. There's like some dukes that's like flame,
and then there's like his serfs, and then that describes like the rest of his team.
And then like Poe Belter's the swine, like the pig, like the livestock.
Oh god, no! Honestly, Poe Belter's been playing better, and so
yeah, he's been better.
I'm happy to because. It seems like the bot lane kind of found their groove or their role into the team. They look like a team. Like when they go for objectives, they're just like, oh, you can see what they do. You understand. They have an idea of how they want to play out the game. They have an understanding of how they want to play out team fights, and they execute maybe badly, maybe poorly. Maybe they're not decisive enough on getting the initiation. They're not clean, right? They can't. If they have a timing window, they'll miss it, but they'll try to get it like 3 minutes later.
They're not good, but they know what they want to do at least now. Yeah. Like they have their picks. They have like Flame is no longer being first pick. Jace randomly, like he's on a tank, which is good. Cody's on like some kind of like long range thing. Dardoch carries the game, and Poe Belter is on something that's always slightly relevant.
The one thing that worries me, and that worries me so much, is if you ever look at the Immortals bot lane, even when in this series where they're playing against Piglet Matt can shove them to the tower and will not pressure. And so on the reverse, Cody gets like a 10 CS lead, and everyone in that situation would be like, "Oh, Cody won lane." But to no, that's not the case. They're literally so chunked under tower that they are willing to give up like CS and give up XP to run like this janky bot lane duo. They'll run like MF Thresh. They'll run something that's clearly like not meta. Yeah. It's like they can't even lane it half the time. And so against better teams, you know that's going to happen? As soon as they see that we're running Thresh MF again. Oh wait, they can't lane because we're playing against Zyra Karma. They get pushed to tower and they're chunked. immediately what's gonna happen?
Dive.
Sven's gonna go down there with Bjergsen, they're gonna die. Or like Hai's gonna go down there with Moon, they're gonna die, guaranteed. And so that really worries me because I know if Immortals wants to move higher up, that's like a big hole in their like laning phase where they can get abused really bad.
And one thing I'll say is like. We, a couple weeks ago, were saying that they have no hope, that this team has, like, no identity, like, their picks are awful. Their picks have come together a little bit, and the team...
They just found out how they want to play.
Right. They play really aggressive. They force stuff. Like, in Game 2, they had that play that they forced around the top side onto Golden Glue, and then it's like, oh, here comes Shen, here comes Ivor, and here comes the rest of the team. They'll force plays, which is good. They're kind of like... They're a little bit like Echo Fox in that sense, where, like, Echo Fox just, like, brute forces stuff nonstop. But Echo Fox has the best early game in the league, and Immortals is like... Well, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like that invade that they did in Game 1. Terrible invade. It was 2v3 invade that he jumps in on, and LeBlanc comes over first, and somehow Team Liquid plays it even worse.
Yeah, oh my, that's something to bring out. Like, they may not make the best plays. Like, a good example, what Mark used to say about Darnock is he will make 2 good plays for 1 bad play. That was a bad play. Do not be mistaken. They won that 4-for-1. That was a terrible play. That was a play where it's like, I'm going to lose.
That's like game-losing play potentially. Like LeBlanc picks up a double kill. She starts snowballing.
And the game's over.
Yeah.
But it worked out for them because Team Liquid executed like just complete garbage.
Right. So I think it's a big win for Immortals actually. Like actually really big. It puts them to 4-4, which is way higher than we thought they'd be. But more important, it's over teams that they'll be battling for position for later in the season.
And it seems like this is really where they're coming together. And
right.
I think... Outside of the 2-0, is it 2-0 for the week?
They 2-0.
Okay,
but it was Dig TL. Which
but it's okay, you know.
Yeah, you take it.
So aside from like their relatively weak schedule, this is like the upswing for Immortals. Something that I didn't expect them to find this early. Like this is something that I expected maybe they find like a couple weeks down the line, maybe week 6.
I mean, even if they finish the season like 8-10 or something like. Bad.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're okay with that. Like even 6-12, that's still not relegated probably based off what we're seeing.
But in the bottom of the season. I think at the moment they can have aspirations for the last playoff seed or
right.
The bottom
right now they look like if they shore things up a little bit more, they can push for playoffs. Even if they don't, I think that like these wins are important enough that it's throwing them like out of promotion.
Yeah,
range.
And like we said before, they're like not a top 4 team right now.
Not even close.
And at the moment, like, if these bottom teams need to, or these middle-of-the-pack teams, I guess, need to take as many wins as they can get. Because as it comes closer and closer to, like, week 6, 7, 8, 9, you're going to start to realize that the wins they gave away early in the season matter a lot.
Yeah, and I think they at least are able to make stuff. TL, like, they're just so, they're like CLG, but, like, worse. I don't know. I don't feel hopeful, like, at all, really.
Oh god! Like the best redeeming thing I could say about TL is Envy's in the league, and I think that's like
and Dignitas.
Yeah, and that's like a depressing statement. If you're a TL fan, like I'm sure you're already on suicide watch, but hopefully they turn around. We didn't have much hope for Immortals last week.
No, I mean if like TL just comes out in 2-0s like against 2 teams that they're matched up against, like then it's going better. But based off what we see this week, it looks really bad.
No.
All right, so that's the last series of the day. We're going to do a QA session now, so you can tweet at Josh. Josh, you need to tell him, because I don't know what to tweet at to get your attention. What do we tweet at here?
Okay.
I'm moving over.
You're moving over.
Josh is now back on set.
Big Daddy Josh.
Oh, my God.
Don't touch my notes.
Fuck your notes.
All right.
This entire time I've just been memeing in the on the broadcast. All right, so we are doing a QA session. If you guys have any questions for us, use the hashtag PLT on Twitter, and I will try to get to as many of them as possible. For those of us who were at the pre-show, you guys got an hour-long start.
How late was that this time?
Probably around 50 minutes.
50? Oh, God.
Was it 50?
It was like 40, 50, yeah.
I don't know.
Right,
So like we also understand the hashtag PLT. It also stands for Pretty Little Things, which is a women's clothing and lingerie store.
Yeah.
But
if you guys want to buy me some,
yeah,
I could probably find some use for it.
Don't worry about that, guys. Still use the hashtag PLT. We'll fight them for it.
All right.
Or join them.
Question number 1 from @TB9910. How long were you all asleep during the INT versus Dig game? For most of it.
I wouldn't even blame you if you were asleep for like...
Someone took a picture of me at the studio, and I was just lying down during game 2. Because like there's like some open seats, so I just like lay down on a row. Game 1, I was like, I actually stayed up for the whole thing. I didn't fall asleep for either, but game 2, I was buried in my phone lying down.
Game 1, well, it was like simultaneously with another game, right?
What? Dig versus Immortals? Was it in the Dig
It
versus?
says Dig versus Immortals.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Friday.
That was Friday. Yeah.
No, that was so bad. It made me like want to go do something else afterwards.
I went home and I was
Like
like,
to
oh,
bed.
LCS is on. I'm gonna go watch it, right? And I was like, oh god, I need to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to miss the next big team fight. And I watched there, and I pissed myself because like literally you're waiting there for like 30 minutes, like waiting for anything to happen.
No,
And
it was so bad that I don't remember parts of it. Like,
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. Is like when I don't remember a game, that's when you know it was just terrible because it's not. There are not any good plays happening. There's not even bad plays happening. It's just like something tragic must have happened.
Yeah, but that game had, I think it was 25 minutes with no kills.
all right, so we have actually this is not a question, but a request from @the_names_Philip. Can you ask Killian if he'll go to prom with my best friend Christina? It would be great if the glorious host of PLT would ask for her.
Who's Killian?
Well, Killian, you should go to prom with Maria's best friend Christina. This is like the most.
This is like some
roundabout,
fucked up like
fifth grade,
soap
like-
opera. Like what the hell's going on? Daytime TV. No, but Marissa's pregnant with Chelsea's girl, and like what the fuck are we talking about?
Usually, Mark gets paid to do these kind of sellout commercials in his show. So I mean, I'm just saying.
All right, by @SirPotato1. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that. Why am I still a TL fan? Ooh, tough question.
Because
You hate yourself?
you are a loyal person. You're a great person. You like abuse. You're slightly masochistic.
I feel like it's like the same way as if you were a CLG fan, but you know there's nothing to hope for. So like CLG has like, oh, they've got like domestic wins. They got 2 domestic titles. They've been to Worlds, you know, and like almost every other like top team has done that.
Every
like,
team has a glory age, like a golden
Yeah,
age.
and-
Where you can look back fondly, whereas like TL was like,
I feel like TL would have the kinds of people who are just like, I want to be there when their glory age arrives. And like, I respect those types of fans a lot. Like, you guys are the diehard fans that the current CLG I know has.
you're like Cubs fans, all right? Without the winning history 100 years ago part.
Yeah.
I'd say you're more like a Vikings fan. You've never seen glory, and you constantly get disappointed season after season.
I think the Vikings have had more all-time greats though. Like the TL curse rosters, I don't know.
That's true. We had like
Like
Randy
what, Voy?
Moss. Yeah.
Oh, God. Dude.
Oh my god!
my
Someone
friend,
clip,
man.
someone
Come
clip
on.
that put together and tweet it at
Yes.
Boy,
Yeah,
please.
let him
Okay. Do you guys? Okay, so this is from @HeyHotshot. Do you guys think that CLG could have success if they had a rock solid player like C9's Impact come into their team to create some sort of consistency? Do you think so? Basically, I guess the question is.
Oh, but I mean,
Wait, what was the question?
of course, it's like if they have a consistent player like Impact come into the team.
Yeah,
but
of course,
You're
right?
asking like, oh, but you see what C9 looks like without Impact. Like that could be CLG, but maybe more inconsistent. You know, so like C9 without Impact could be like maybe like 4th place team with Impact they're first.
Right.
And like CLG with Impact could also be that high, but I think that's a really easy cop out answer. It's like, what would CLG look like with Arrow?
With Faker.
With Faker, you know?
Right. I mean, especially on a team like CLG, where so much of it is about like their synergy, right? Like
Yes.
we've seen this roster win, and who knows exactly what's wrong with them right now. But it's not like they're incompetent players or they're not good enough, because we've seen them be fine, and we've seen them. I don't think the LCS is like super improved this split. I think it's kind of normalized more, where there's like the top end's worse, the bottom end's better. So like if CLG was the same, they would be higher up if anything. So they're clearly struggling for different reasons. I don't think you need to add a player like
I just think
like a more solid player. Like what does that even mean?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's kind of like a tough question to ask because it's too hypothetical.
It's more like it's just like it's obviously just a cop out of a person who like just thinks Starshawn's the problem, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
that person's like indirectly
Yeah.
like if you could replace one player on CLG
isn't-
who's Indian. Like,
no, it's like if you're looking at Team Liquid and you're just like, if I could replace Golden Glue with Faker, I mean, would you do it? Like, do you think it would make TL a better team? And it's like, sure.
yeah,
like,
dude, great plan. Let's
but it's like that's not gonna fix the problem.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a couple different people who are asking about Envy and their play level versus like a Challenger Series team, and if you guys have any insight on like what you feel like the top of Challenger scene versus
The way I always see Challenger is like they're gonna be good individually, but their teamwork. So what that usually translates into is like their mid to late game shot calling is not going to be as great as LCS teams. So also Envy has that problem. Their mid to late game shot call isn't that good. But Envy also has a good early game. Like I would say they have like a pretty good early game in a lot of situations. Like if you watch like some games, Lira just goes off.
Right. So I've been watching the challenge things. I've been casting it, and none of those teams look particularly good right now. Like the one that's supposed to be good was
Goldcoin, right?
Goldcoin. It's like it's got Mad Life, it's got Phoenix,
they're splitting games almost every series.
Yeah,
right?
they don't look good. The best looking team right now is probably E United, and it's like Fox and Gilius with 2 like random players from the scouting grounds or something. So who are actually looking fine, but they don't show anything where I'm like, wow, that team's going to knock Envy out of the league. Like, no one looks like that right now. So the way, like, C9 Challenger, you're like, Energy, you're fucked. Like, there's no, like, comparison right now.
Yeah, so right now, like, we'll talk bad about Envy, right? Like, Name your build sucks. Like, what are you doing this? But when you compare them to Challenger scene, like, it's not even on the same dimension.
I think it's pretty similar to traditional sports where people are like, well, if you took the top collegiate team versus the lowest rated, you know, like, NFL team, like, what would happen? It's like, well, the lowest rated NFL team would murder the top college team.
It's not quite that extreme, but I mean, right now, as bad as some of the teams look in the LCS, the challenger teams are all struggling against each other right now too. So it's not anything.
Tough to say. Okay, by @sadprank, any champs you're surprised that hasn't seen any play?
I thought it was really interesting. Didn't TSM ban Talon the first game against Envy?
I'd have to look at my notes.
I think that. Talent might start getting picked up soon alongside Zed.
You were saying that yesterday or last week too, right?
I think as more and more people start to play him, he's becoming like a top tier pick ban in all all high-low North American solo queue right now. Like legit, like all the time. And I think another pick might see play, but it's like a pick where it's very hard to translate unless you're a one trick. I think right now Shaco is pretty overtuned at the moment, and there's a lot of like really, really strong Shaco players.
Oh God, why did you say that?
In A that are like super high rated, like top 10 rated for a person who used to be like very low Masters last season, like hit close to top 10, and a lot of them all say Shaco is super good. But that's a champion you need like a year of like dedicated play to make sure you're a strong Shaco player.
So don't start that year right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure nothing will change in the year, guys. Go sink the time into it.
Yeah, and so I think of all the things the strangest thing that could come up would probably be talent.
Okay.
@ZaneNadim1, this is to MarkZ. Do you actually play League? If so, who do you main and what rank are you?
I haven't played League in forever. So I hit Diamond in Season 4. Season 5, I just did like my placements in probably like 10 games, and I got Plat 1 or whatever places, like the highest you can get placed at. And then last season, Season 6, I barely did my placements, and I was gold, and I haven't done my placements this season. So I've just like not played and just... So I don't play the game right now.
So when you walked into the door, you dramatically decreased the average elo in this room.
Probably. I don't know. What are you rated?
I'm like Plat 5 right now.
Yeah, right,
I decayed down to Plat 5.
I'm like top 60 challenger guy. You gotta
get to it. Last season, all I did is I played Graves top for like 5 games during my placements when it was like out of meta, and I just fucking fed.
All right, next question @Cruzy3R. Cruzier. Okay, this is an odd question. So tomorrow, Daddy and Mommy fight on the Rift. Who is Daddy? Who is Mommy? And who wins?
Oh shit, this is such a good question.
Okay.
All right, yo, FlyQuest is definitely Dad.
Yes.
They're just like so much more like.
They're like the mature, the older. Wait.
I was gonna say they're like the crazy ones. They're like the guy who comes home drunk in the middle of the night, and they're like, "Give me Zed, leave LeBlanc open. I'm fucked up." And like,
wait, why does the father figure have to be the domestic abuse person? Like, wait,
I don't know. Statistically, it's more likely.
What the heck?
Holy shit!
And then,
dude, do we need to talk about something?
C9,
okay,
the mom is like very reserved, and she does everything right, and it's prim and proper. Their drafts are clean. You know, they play correct. You know.
I like the like stylistic comparisons, but the analogy, I'm a little bit worried.
All right, well, I answered. It's Scarra's turn to answer.
Well, I think the same way, but it's like I just feel like it's like the.
Without the whole abusive drinking.
Yeah, without the whole abusive drinking and like domestic violence problem, I think FlyQuest is the explosive crazy guys, and C9 is the one that you know is always going to be meta consistent. Exactly, you know how they're going to play, and whether or not they can execute is based on how they play.
For everyone wondering, I actually had a great childhood.
All right, next question. With that, we have at B_movie. What the hell? This one's directed to Scarra. Normally, Dig leaves fans hopeful, and only in the late season do they fall flat. What happened this season?
Oh, they just took the nosedive a little bit early, you know. And in fact, this is probably good for Dig because they took a fall so early, people don't expect them to rise back up. So maybe this time, this iteration is going to be a little bit different. Whether or not I believe that, I don't believe that. But I mean, personally, it just always felt like. So when I was on the team, like there was like a plan for like how the rosters went, and some of them went really poorly, right? Like we had certain people that we picked up that like didn't work out too well, that I had reasonings for, but afterwards reasonings weren't that good. Okay, but as I left Dig, it seemed like how they built the team around and like, the rosters they built it around were like more and more strange. Like I don't know what they wanted to build around, and the results showed. Like they placed lower and lower and lower and lower. And I'm not gonna say that like I was like the reason why Dig won, but it was all me, baby. Let's
okay. We got
Dig
there.
wants
We
to
finally
turn it
got
around,
there.
sign this man up.
Yeah.
It's because I just don't know how they build a team again. You know, I really don't know like what's their idea of like this is the team that we want. We're gonna build around these players. Similar to TL, I feel like they build around the wrong players a lot of the times. And so they come in with a lot of potential, and you're just like, oh, dude, how could they possibly lose with a world champion? Or how can they possibly lose with this super good Korean top laner, top like 2 in LCK? But, you know, both the teams managed to find a way.
Okay, well, you know, besides the crazy good Korean top laner, we have a really good question from our boy at Liquid Dominate. Should I dust off the old mouse and keyboard and get back in there?
Oh!
I would love, honestly, to see like. I mean, you guys, you streamers, not going to say how much you make. You got plenty of money. Go buy a challenger team and just, like, fuck around in the challenger. I think that'd be so funny. Like Cutie, Dom, Scarra, get Voi's ass back in there. Yeah, like Dyrus. Like, who needs the support? No one watches those motherfuckers stream. Get an all carry team in there and just have some
Hey,
fun.
Miles, you need a job?
Yeah, Miles.
The Blitzcrank only player. Yeah. But no, it's really frustrating because especially as an X player, you're just like you expect better. Like you expect when you leave, these players, everyone develops over time. And so especially I can see it's frustrating for Dominate to be like, why would you ever do that right there? Or like even for me, like some of the decision making stuff, like I feel like I wasn't more advanced in my time for like in terms of like decision making.
It's always easier to look from the outside.
Oh no, 100%. I completely agree with that.
Because like I'll look at drafts and I'll be like, why are they doing that? But when you actually get into a team environment, it's like, well, this player doesn't like that matchup. He thinks it's really bad. So when we were on stage, he kind of panicked and he's like, I can't play this matchup, so I had to pick something else that I don't want to fucking pick. And then you got like, you know, some stupid matchup that's awful for you, or like you had to ban something you didn't want to ban, and it just like. I don't know. It's always way harder when you're actually dealing with 5 different people than when you're on the outside and you assume a team is a unit. And you're like, why'd the team do that when it's really like, well, this guy said this thing. And
but me and Dom and Cutie could take it.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, do it. I would love to cast your games.
All right, next question we have at Mexamixa, whatever. The first question is kind of dumb. It's just, what team do you expect to win the split right now? C9, whatever. Yep. What team has a chance to be a dark horse, though?
I could
Echo Fox.
Echo Fox? You mean dark horse to win, or like just make the finals? I think make the finals.
I think make finals is more interesting.
The finals?
Yeah. What team is like a dark? Because like let's say C9's a shoe-in right now.
Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe they're even not. But let's say like what's your dark horse that would make the number 2?
I don't think FlyQuest is considered a dark horse.
No,
right?
I
would say TSM, FlyQuest, and C9 are not dark horses.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be
like between like P1 or
that'd be your dark horse. I think P1.
P1, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Something about today's games that I saw just felt bad. Like when I watched your games, I just thought that like, wow, that's a really big hole in how they play. Like I thought the first game was like, okay, they got Arrowhead, Arrow smashed the game, and then they lost because they couldn't play it out. In the second game, Moon was just like, I'm just going to smash you guys on the bot side of the map, and then Arrow will never go off, and then the game's just going to be over. So it's like, I think that team has, like, they're looking really good, but they also have weaknesses that are largely, like, shadowed over by the fact that like a lot of times they get early game leads on their jungler, and a lot of times like they just play like Ryu plays really well. But when these match up against like a hard matchup or like Inori's pressured, then like the holes start becoming bigger and bigger, right? You just see like, oh, why did Inori die there? It's like, oh, why did Ryu died there? Why he died there? Arrow got dove. Why did he do that? You know?
So we haven't seen like P1 and specifically Inori in like a high pressure situation yet in terms of like he had to fight in relegations. Nope, didn't have to like go in the playoffs. So I want to see what happens in playoffs. But if Inori like can step up in playoffs, I actually think that they have like a decent chance because I think Ryu has a ton of experience, Arrow has a ton of experience, Zig's like the ultimate team player, Adrian is like fine. So like,
what a compliment.
He's
like, just fine.
Every time we talk about this team, it's always like Adrian's just fine.
Well, because he's not like flash hooking people or like doing anything cool. He's just like, I'm on Nami, I pressed W and I didn't miss position and look like an idiot. So I don't know.
I think any of those 3 teams would be my dark horse. Like the thing,
wow.
No,
wow.
The thing is, it's like
being real precise.
There wouldn't be a dark horse past those teams. I don't see.
You don't think there's like no chance TL like?
You think TL will make it?
No.
Whoa, that was a fast no.
Yeah, because I'm looking bad. I just meant like if someone wanted to tell me that there's like. Someone from the future comes in, like, TL makes it, I wouldn't be like, that's fucking impossible, you're lying. I'd be like, okay.
What? Yeah, you would.
Yeah, you would be.
The meta changes, and then they're playing Callista.
And like, so somehow, like, Vayne is back in the
meta.
Yeah,
like literally, Bork gets buffed to hell, and, and like, Piglet just...
All right, besides MarkZ fantasies aside, we're going to move on.
Yeah.
This question pertains particularly for me, at Boo2Man, who's better at Melee?
It's not even close. Yeah, I beat Pastry Time up again today, though. But that's it. I can't. Josh is the best Melee player, but Miles beats the hell out of him. So,
yo, if I'm playing at the top of my game though, I will chain grab Miles to death.
We gotta get it. We gotta get a grudge match one night. One day after the stream, we'll set up the capture card. We'll have a Josh versus Miles grudge match.
Oh my god.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay. If TL is the Vikings, does that make Piglet Adrian Peterson?
No.
No, wait, Adrian Peterson's way better.
No, he's like Percy Harvin or something.
Yeah, like
he's just
has
like
migraines.
He's like fucking himself
up
all the time. Yeah.
I don't know who any of these people are, but
just laugh real hard right now. Percy Harvin.
Haha.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Your acting career's over. Okay. At OWIDX123, so why isn't Kled singing play in LCS currently? Because other regions have started playing a little bit of Kled, right?
It's mostly like an EU thing, and I think it was once in LCK.
Yeah.
But wasn't that like a week or two ago?
There's all kinds of stuff that people are just like, well, what can be played into these tanks, you know?
Yeah.
And
right. I mean,
it's one of the things that's like, it's okay. It's like a pick that's, it's for the more aggressive top lane player that can like kind of split push carry as well, but still pressure, and it's like baby Jace. It's Jace that can frontline.
Right. So there's the really big carry in Jace in the top lane that people ban out all the time, and then after that, it's like a lot of tier 2s that are like fine. Like you can do Fiora. We saw Flaxish on Riven. Like you can pick random others. Like you could probably play Quinn. Like you could
play Singed. You can play Fiora. You can play. There's a bunch of stuff you can play in the tanks. It's just like well, at some point. You're gonna see a reason why Maokai is first pick. Like there's a reason why people
watch
pick
P1 versus FlyQuest Game 1, a 0-5 Maokai, and watch how long that dude lives in team fights.
He got redemption for 850, and then he autoed right after redemption for 320. I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. Like legitimately, there is a very, very good reason why Maokai sees a lot of play, and tanks in general.
Right, because they're stable.
All right. Well, I think that was most of the questions that came in. Someone did reach out to Voyboy, by the way, with that clip.
Oh yeah, did Voy respond yet?
Yeah, and Voyboy responded, "Lol, come on, man."
Yeah, my bad, dude. I'm sorry. I'll throw anyone under the bus for a laugh.
Yeah. All right. Well, you should clip that and show Voyboy his apology. Yeah. So, anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for today's PLT, guys. Thanks for coming by and watching the hardcore analysis. By Scarra and
the softcore. I like
softcore. Wow,
that's
softcore analysis.
Yeah. For people who are joining us right now, I'm sorry, we're already ending, but you can find the VOD of today's show on my YouTube. YouTube.com/ScarraOfficial.
Why were you so confused about that?
Because I was like trying to figure out exactly where they could find it on. I lost my train of thought. Additionally, tomorrow we'll come out with our power rankings for the week. which we will analyze and put exactly your favorite teams exactly where they belong.
Yeah.
Exactly where we've never been wrong because it's all
TL10.
hindsight. Yeah. Probably. Today we start a little later because I have to stay at Riot for a meeting. But tomorrow I come home right after, so we'll be pretty much as LCS is ending, and they'll be like the World's Night thing. But then come to us right after.
Yeah.
We'll be on.
Yep. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.